Listen, everybody, if you've been following me, you know one of the things that we talk about so much is building a personal brand. Whether you're at your firm, whether you're at other firms, having that brand is the immense value that you have. A lot of times we talk about that as part of being that portable book of business, legal business development, etc. So I wanted to dive deeper into this with Steve Fretzin for two reasons. One, he just released a book, Legal Business Development Isn't Rocket Science. But two, that book is the culmination of his expertise on this topic. So it dovetails so nicely with everything that we talk about this personal brand. Because ultimately, I think a lot of us get caught up on this concept of legal business development being something too difficult, too complicated, something we don't have time for, etc. And I just love the way that Steve breaks it down with, hundreds of specific actionable tips in the book that we'll be going through today. For those of you that don't know Steve, he is a business development therapist, coaches and trains lawyers on the most modern day business development skills, providing precise tips, fresh ideas, and actionable tasks that drive tangible results. He's also the host of the amazing, he did not include those words, the amazing podcast, Be That Lawyer. He's also released a number of Be That Lawyer live episodes where he's gotten a number of guests on. He's been featured in the Chicago Tribune, Cranes and Entrepreneur.com. He's appeared on NBC News and WGN Radio. He has written 4 books on legal business development, is a regular contributor to the Chicago Daily Law Bulletin, and has published articles in Attorney at Law Magazine, the National Law Review, and the Illinois State Bar Association. Of course, like I said, his most recent book, Legal Business Development Isn't Rocket Science, reached Amazon international best-selling status when it launched the past month, and not just in like one category, in a bunch of them, in a bunch of different areas. It's super cool to see. So, Steve, as always, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. Really happy to be here. Well, I'm happy to be back.
Yeah, that's true. I think you might be the first repeat guest.
Ooh, okay. I like that. Right. I've done that on my show a few times, and I've got, I don't think only a few people have come back, but it's it's an honor.
Absolutely. It's an honor to have you. All right, so we're going to dive into Legal Business Development Isn't Rocket Science. We'll talk about the book. We'll talk about the underlying information in the book. Hopefully, some of you listening and watching will buy the book. We'll have the link there for that. But before we do that, I do want to talk about our last episode. Very interesting. We talked with Marco Evans about the 7 things you're doing wrong when it comes to recruiting. So Marco really went into the things that firms are struggling with when it comes to recruiting top talent and why, so that for you as that business owner or as that attorney with the ability to bring on some more help can really dive into those things that you're making mistakes with to get better candidates, to drive better information, to hire better people, to retain them, etc. So, but enough about that. Legal business development. Steve, here's where I want to start. What is legal business development? I know I gave my intro briefly, but like from your standpoint as the expert, what is the real definition here that we're talking about?
Well, I think when I got into this space in 2008 with the recession, I had a company called Sales Results, and it was all about helping entrepreneurs and sales team get results with their sales. And lawyers, when I started working with lawyers, it became very clear very quickly that they were very uncomfortable with the word sales, and that they would have to sell legal services. Like that's not what they got to be a lawyer. The reason they became a lawyer, that's not really how they want to spend their time. So the term business development was sort of created as a backup. In fact, many lawyers were calling business development marketing, and still do. And they're very different activities, right? You're handling a lot of the marketing. I'm handling the business development. They're not the same. And so I think it's a nicer way of saying sales. But legal business development is all about helping lawyers to go out and get their own clients and build their own books of business. And that has become in the forefront of how an attorney is valued in the career of as a law practitioner.
So I want to dive into that for a second, but you mentioned something. So how are you separating legal business development from marketing?
Well, legal business development from my, and this is again my perspective and opinion about it, because other people could play semantics with it, but it's really about how do you do the prospecting, the networking. How are you doing things with your own personal time to develop relationships and ultimately develop business? So that's how I see legal business development, and I see legal marketing as the social media, the newsletter, the website, the things where it allows you to build your brand and build your market out. And so it's the difference is one-to-one versus one-to-many might be a way to easily convey the difference between the two.
Gotcha. Makes total sense. And yeah, and so you're talking about how important this has been. And I mean, and we've seen this in even large firms where there are two different partner tracks. There's the partner that's got the book of business, there's the partner that just builds a ton of hours. And obviously the one with the business is getting better benefits, better cut, I don't whatever that looks like. How else are you seeing this impact the legal market?
I mean, it's again, not everybody's going to do it. Not everybody's going to buy into it. And it's interesting that this great resignation has actually allowed for a pause on the importance of legal business development. Maybe not to Marco Evans and the recruiters, because they still want to place the attorneys that have $500,000 books and higher. But there are attorneys that are in super high demand right now that are just the worker bee attorney that can crank out billable hours. That has a need higher than maybe it has in many years. So it's taken us maybe a step back. However, there are still attorneys that understand the path to freedom, control financially, with the family, and how you spend your free time, and path to retirement, or path to just being able to dictate that your terms of your life comes down to the book of business. It comes down to what size it is. And are you working for your clients? Or are you working for your clients or for clients that aren't yours? And now you've got 5, 6, 7 partners that are your bosses, handing you the work and dictating how it gets done, when it gets done, and how you should spend your time.
See, it's funny you look at it that way. I mean, I totally agree with you on the last part. On the beginning part, I look at it differently, that to your benefit. I look at it from the standpoint of all of these lawyers and these firms that have really committed to great marketing and great business development are the ones who are now able to get their pick of, the best service attorneys, the best, people that are just going to bill the hours, because they've got the work, because they've got the stuff to pass on, because they've got the cash to pay these people, because, so it's crazy to me to see the impact that this has had. I think it makes this stuff more important, because if you were the attorney who got cut, or you were the attorney who resigned, either you've got business to open up your own firm, or you've got to go find somebody who does to find a different spot.
Well, I think what it's done is it's brought to the forefront the importance of law firm culture, the importance of law firm mission, the importance of law firm transparency, and the law firms that are still in the Wild West, just shooting up in the air. Oh, you'll get the bonus I think you should get, or you'll get paid what I think you should get, or, we have a formula for that. It's not your business. It's not your concern. Go bill hours. They're the firms that are going to be, devastated in the next couple of years, if not already, because they're running this. They're not running it like a business. They're running it like they've always run it, which is half-assed. And it's just kind of the slow moving train that's been the legal industry, but it's changing. It's changing faster than it ever has. And the people that are with it are going to be okay. And the people that aren't are probably going to, be in trouble.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and you've got Utah and Arizona that have relaxed a lot of the rules on non-attorney ownership, on fee sharing with a non-attorney, et cetera. And so it's going to be very interesting to see when the ivory tower continues to crumble. I 1,000% agree with you that the firms that really have that strong culture are going to be the ones that are best positioned to survive.
Yeah, it's a little bit like cannabis. It starts in some small places, and then it eventually expands out. And it may be 5 years before, some state that's, less progressive like Illinois is going to do something like that. But I'm watching it, because when law firms have to compete against businesses, people that have experience in marketing, people that have run businesses and know how to recruit, hire, run, and maintain profitability and build brand, they're going to find themselves way, way behind.
There you go. There's the next book. Legal business development is like cannabis, or the future of the law industry.
And you can, in the book, you can rip the pages out and use them for rolling paper. So I'm just saying, there's lots of different options here, Jordan.
I got to be honest, man. I freaking love it. Whether that was a joke or not, I think that's like the Kramer coffee table book.
Coffee table that is a coffee. Yeah, I'm all there. Things that do other things, I'm a fan.
There we go. All right. So Man, you threw me off my train of thought there for a second. So when it comes to legal business development, I guess like not necessarily like where does somebody start doing it, but is this something that an attorney should start from day one or as soon as possible? Or is there a specific time frame that you see best positioning attorneys to start the business development journey?
I think it should start in undergrad, high school, undergrad, and in law school, not going out and getting business, but developing your network, developing relationships, and really starting to identify who are the winners and who are the losers. And I don't mean that in a mean or negative way. I'm just saying there are some people that perform and they're going to end up being a GC someday. They're going to end up being a CEO someday. They're going to end up being some, and of course, there's always there's a guy that was a total burnout in my high school, and I think he just sold a company for 40 million. So you never know. You never know. But I think that there's levels, back to Seinfeld, there are levels, Jordan, of what needs to happen at different stages. And so I think building relationships and developing your network is sort of, that has to happen all along. And when I go and speak to law schools, and I speak at law schools every year, and they're all deer in the headlights, totally deer in the headlights with this stuff. And the law school is not really talking about it too much. There's a couple of professors that, deal in practice management, and they will touch on networking. They'll touch on some of these finer points. And then I think, you just have to really dive into being a great lawyer, because if you can't perform as a lawyer, if you don't understand the law and you're able to provide good quality service, then as you're selling legal services and then getting burned, people are getting burned and you're getting a bad reputation. That's not a good recipe. So I think it's build a network, learn the law, become awesome for the first couple of years at being a lawyer. And then you have to start thinking about, hey, can I start leveraging these relationships, bring a senior partner with me, but start bringing in some business, start adding value to the firm, and start getting comfortable at doing some prospecting and some closing of some smaller deals to start get that fire burning.
Yeah, and look, I hate the concept, like the old saying, "Those who can't do teach," and I freaking hate that. But from a law school perspective, I think it's actually the opposite. I think you get a lot more lawyers going into academia because they are phenomenal lawyers, because they truly love the law, because they really want to have those deep philosophical conversations. So it's not that they couldn't do, it's that they were extra good at, as opposed to, I don't think you see as many that, had a $3 million portable book of business at a firm and they were like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to go start teaching. You don't see that transition as much. So you're really getting, I think, the true academics, for better and worse in both directions. You're not getting the legal business development experts. You're not getting the great networkers. You're not getting the rainmakers as much.
But the people that are teaching practice management, the people that are teaching entrepreneurship, and some of these, they need to be people that have been there, done that, have been on the road, have been at the local chamber of commerce, that have had to bleed a little bit to get their business to the next level, or the law practice to the next level. Someone like you, or someone, like I can name a ton of lawyers that have kind of built things from the ground up, but have figured stuff out and then teach, and even then it's good for them to stay in practice because it keeps them sharp. I was offered, this was a very soft offer, but a large law firm in Chicago, kind of was poking at me about being their internal business development coach. Okay. And the idea that I was going to go in at 8:00 and leave at 5 and coach attorneys all day made me want to put a gun in my mouth. I mean, not really, but it was like, that was a horrifying thought to me. Even if they paid me $1 million a year, I would have not probably taken it, because I like the idea that I'm teaching lawyers how to do business development, but I also have to keep getting clients myself. I have to keep sharp with marketing. I mean, I'm working with you and Greg all the time to come up with new and creative ways to market and go to get business and to drive in new prospects. And that, I think, is important for me to then advise lawyers on what's working, what's not working, and best practices.
So true. I really appreciate that, because it is, especially, I mean, look, anybody who wasn't doing this on March 10th of COVID year has completely had to change the majority of what they're doing, even if it's still that same one-on-one contact. But when you couldn't physically get in front of somebody for 6 or 8 weeks or however long, depending upon your state, a lot of people were trying to combine some of the digital marketing techniques with the more tried and true business development, networking type stuff. And so it really has changed the industry totally.
Yeah. Well, again, business development, the topic of our conversation today is it's never been more important than today. And, again, while there might be some, couple of years that some additional lawyers can get out of, being a worker bee, billable hour attorney, I'm getting calls from attorneys all the time in their 50s saying, is it too late for me? Because they've been doing everyone's work for 20 years and that work is dried up. And now what? They're not really prepared to go to market. They're not really prepared. They don't have any clue how to leverage those relationships, how to bring in business. And no, it's not too late, but they always say the same thing later. I wish I had done this in my 30s. And I go, yeah, me too.
Yeah. And I mean, and to those attorneys' credit, I mean, it's not like, I can't imagine it's the random attorney reaching out to you who's, dabbled in this. It's that 15, 20-year experience, board certified expert in a specific field who suddenly like foreclosures. And we didn't have those for so long. And now what do you do when, you can't have a case for, what was it? 20 something months? I don't know.
Yeah. But if things dry up, like whether it's because of the economy or because of the great resignation or because of any COVID, we need to be able to pivot. We need to be able to transition to bringing in work for the firm that maybe isn't what you do, or maybe it's getting out of the specific area you focused in into a tertiary area that you need to rebuild. Whatever the case, it doesn't stop. So you've got to be a little bit nimble.
Totally. So talk to me about the book. I'm curious in the process from your end of the book as well as the actual information that you're sharing in the book.
Yeah. So this is a great book because it really is giving everyone interested in legal business development, marketing, networking, planning, execution. It's got over 50 chapters, and within each chapter is contained 2 to 5 tips or takeaways. And the way that I write, Jordan, and this is what drives me nuts, is I read a 300-page book on branding. And then I get the whole idea that, okay, so 300 pages, it all comes down to 1 or 2 sentences that says, here's the theme of the book, do this and your life will always be better. But it doesn't really tell you how to do that. You just get the theme and the theme makes sense. But all of the rest was background and research and stories and examples. But it wasn't getting into the tactical, actionable, do this, say this, try this. And some books do. Like there's a book on branding. Was it Mike Kim? You Are the Brand. Okay. Where he gets into here's how you write a great LinkedIn profile. I love that. And I did that. He showed me how to do it. He gave an example and I did it and I love it. And it looks great and it works. So that's what this book is all about. It's giving lawyers the steps in the language on so many different areas of business development that you don't even have to read the whole book. I mean, I'd like people to read the whole book, but if you just open up to a chapter or open up to the table of contents and just kind of, here, peer-to-peer. Okay. So let's see here, investing in legal business development, a law firm's conundrum. So why aren't law firms investing in legal business development? What are my options as an individual at a law firm? And how do I make that happen? How do I get the firm to pony up the dough? Or how do I have to look at this differently to invest myself? And then what does that mean about the firm when they don't invest and they're not interested in supporting me as their attorney? And it's 50 chapters of that kind of content. And I'd like to also just mention a lot of the chapters go back to my personal experiences. So let's say, for example, a lot of people that follow me know that I love fishing with my son, my 15-year-old. I've been fishing with him since he could walk and hold a pole. And so I use the story of us on a fishing trip and then bring it back to business, bring it back to what's the lesson learned that you got to change your bait or that you have to change spots and how that relates to marketing. And you can't just keep pumping out the same stuff. You've got to make changes and adjustments. But I try to talk in a way that people will really, that will really resonate with people by using personal examples and stories. And of course, always giving those tactical answers that people can then say, I can do that now myself.
I love that. And as you were talking, I'm thinking of like the last 5 books that I read and how I think 3 of them could have been not even an email, like 1 paragraph and 250 pages later. But that's what people need. Not, let me rephrase that. What you're doing is what people need. They need the ability to kind of flip through as a checklist, as a worksheet, as actionable things to try. Do you have any guidance, or how do you guide them on like which of those 200 something options for them to focus on?
Well, keep in mind that each chapter contains X number of takeaways. And I always try to preface things by saying, not everything that I talk about is going to work for everyone. I mean, someone that's in estate planning that needs to develop relationships with financial planners could be very different than someone who's dealing in big stakes litigation and how they're going to develop relationships and get the big elephant they've been looking for. So we have to pick and choose what makes sense for you in your practice and at the time and the stage that you are. But I'm also general enough where I'm giving things that can be used. And I also will say, but if you're not happy with the language I'm providing and you don't feel it resonating with you, then change it, then make some adjustments. It isn't like this is the only way to do it. These are a lot of the ways that I'm successful with my clients, but you have to kind of, everybody's different. Everybody needs to make things personal to them and their approach and their comfort level, to that degree.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, it reminds me of, you and I will share similar information, but to very different people. I'm looking more towards, the younger firm owners. You're talking to a lot of the slightly older at, AmLaw, et cetera. And so like we have tweaked ideally, a very similar message to a very different audience. And so I love that you're talking about that for the purpose of the book.
Yeah. I mean, as much as I try to teach processes, and the processes are uniform to some degree, follow step 1, follow step 2, follow step 3. The language within those steps needs to change based on the individual and based on the practice area and based on their experience and comfort level. And so I try to provide enough options or provide enough guidance in the books for them to sort of understand that and to make those changes. So it's not a one size fits all, but you don't want to change things so much that it loses its edge. It loses. If I'm teaching someone how to set, let's say, for example, a networking agenda. So Jordan, you and I have never met before. We meet at a networking event. We talk for 10 minutes. We saw that we're both in the legal space. We have similar clients and we could do some networking together. There's a networking agenda that I would want to set at the beginning of the meeting to sort of make sure we stay on track and we stay focused and we walk away with something of value. And that networking agenda really works. So you can use it exactly how it's built, or you can make changes to it. You just don't want to change it so much that it's not really getting the mission accomplished.
Well, it's finding that intersection of what's going to work and what's authentic to you, and then like that, center of the Venn diagram.
Nailed it. Exactly.
So I know you mentioned that one with the agenda. So are there a couple other, like your favorite tips from the book or the most interesting ones or something along those lines? Give people a taste so they want to buy the book for the rest.
Yeah, I'll give you a really good one. And many of the attorneys that I coach really struggle with how to ask for introductions from their clients. Okay. And they're like, look, this is a client who's paying my bills. They're getting my billable hours up. Who am I to ask anything of them? And what we're forgetting in many cases is that they do want to refer you. They just don't have the time, or they don't have the knowledge or the forethought of how to do it. They need coaching. So, and quite frankly, like if I have a great handyman or a great doctor, like I had my hip replaced and I've got this great doctor who it was the easiest surgery, easiest recovery. The guy was super thorough. So I want to push this doctor around because it makes me look good. It makes me feel good. But lawyers don't think about the fact that their clients, GCs, CEOs, et cetera, would be thrilled to introduce them but they need to have a good approach. So I'll give you 3 different approaches, and I have funny names for all of them, but it's easy to remember and it works. It works. First thing is you have to know right up front that you're good at what you do, that you're great at what you do. If you don't have that confidence and that knowledge, or you just suck, then don't do this. Then you're out. You failed like test number 1. Okay.
But they'll talk about you being awful 10 times as much as they'll talk about you being amazing. So you're really just spreading the terrible.
You're in no position to ask for anything. You haven't earned it. But let's say that I've worked with a client for now 6 months. That client's numbers have never been higher. That client's brand has never been better. That client's confidence has never been stronger. And we also have a great personal relationship. We've become friends. Everybody with me. That's the baseline of where I need to be before I ask for an introduction. Okay. Then I have 3 different options. Number 1 is called the happy, or I'll call it the happy. Okay. And the reason that it's called happy is because that's stupid. And no one's ever going to say happy and not think it's stupid, but it's memorable. And the idea is, so Jordan, let's say you're my client. I'd say, Jordan, we've been working together a long time. You've been very complimentary of the work I've done. And I am in a position where I'm looking to bring in more business to the firm. And I just know how happy you've been. I just wonder if there are other GCs that you're friends with and have relationships with that I could be making happy too, that I could be helping the way I've helped you the last number of years. Is that something you're open to talking about? So think about it. You're happy. You could be making someone else happy. And by the way, I'm also asking for permission. I'm not demanding anything. I'm asking you, is that okay? Are you comfortable? Is that something you're open to talking about? Right?
And how important do you see that being in terms of the line of work? Like, I imagine that's a different conversation when it's like, hey, remember when I got you off for murdering your wife? Who else do you know that
Yeah.
I
Who
could make
else is
happy?
murdering people that I should be talking to? I think it does run the gamut pretty well across most. But I would say for you, for example, maybe it's not the personal injury client because they don't know people that have personal injuries on the spot, but maybe it's getting in touch with other lawyers they may know. Maybe it's getting in touch with other connectors they know. It doesn't always have to be to an end user, potential client. So the goal is that I'm making sense. You agree with me that you're happy, and you agree that I would be making other people happy. And I'm asking, is that okay? You say yes. And that's where it starts. That's not where it ends. That's the beginning of my process, not the end. There's then 6 or 7 steps that you need to walk through to get it to actual fruition. And that's what I'm teaching my lawyer clients every day. And that's
Makes
one of
total
3
sense.
ways. You want to hear the other 2?
Absolutely.
All right. Second one is what I call the quid pro quo. Okay. And essentially, this is for a client that you've done great work for. Maybe you've even connected them with, help them find an assistant GC or help connected them in some other way. Let's say that it helps if you've done that. Okay. And then it would be something like this, Jordan, we've been working together for many years. And I've made, some efforts to connect you and you've made some efforts to connect me. But I wonder if we sat down and really talked about it, that there might be some additional positive connections we can make for each other. Is that something you'd be open to talking about when we sit for lunch next week? So now I'm not saying give to me. I'm saying I've helped you. I want to continue helping you and adding value for you. But can we talk about that and be reciprocal with it in a quid pro quo fashion?
So along those lines, obviously, when you're doing it, you need to have done what you were saying you did for them. You need to have actually done that reach out. But from the reverse of that, like if let's say they haven't referred anybody back to you before, do you still include that line or do you talk about it? Yeah.
Yeah, you might just change it a little bit. Say, I know how well connected you are. And quite frankly, I like to think I have a fairly sizable network. And there may be just other ways we can help each other other than just the way we work together day to day. But I'd like to talk about that. Is that something you'd be open to chatting about when we visit next week?
Gotcha.
Okay. So I'm still leveraging the fact that I know as a GC, you've been working for McDonald's for 10 years and you've had a lot of GCs that have come and go that have worked under you or whatever the case might be. There are introductions that can be made. And by the way, you may need my help for connections because I know a ton of people. And it's just bringing up, and that again, each one of these is used for different people in different situations. So you have to pick the one that makes sense for you and the relationship you're in and the background you have with that client or with a strategic partner. I mean, these introduction formats work for really just about anybody, any situation. It doesn't just have to be for a client.
Well, and ultimately, like, yes, we're talking about the quid pro quo, but really we're creating a win-win-win situation. We've got the win for Steve, we've got a win for the person you're sitting down with, and we have a win for the people that are connected between the two of you as well, or at least that's how it should be.
As long as those introductions are made with forethought and with the qualifying that they are positive and that they are, solid, yeah, everybody can win. But again, if you skip the next steps, it could also be a 3-way loser. I'll give you an example of that. I make an email introduction for you because I wanted to connect you with someone. You follow through. That person never follows through, never returns an email, etc. You call them, leave a message, they never respond. So the introduction that I had for you that was so wonderful and well thought out and thoughtful. Now you're pissed off because this guy never responded. I'm pissed off this guy never responded and he should have. And this guy, if you ever do talk to him, maybe he has a bad taste in his mouth, maybe either about himself or about the whole situation, because now he has to come and apologize to you for not following through after 3 voicemails or whatever. So there's a 3-way loser. So we have to start somewhere, but we also have to consider that there's other steps after the fact beyond what we're talking about in this little bubble that is the approach for introductions, there's a ton of steps after that need to be handled as well.
Yeah, and I will tell you definitively, like I switched financial advisors because of exactly what you said. Like everybody that this guy connected me with was was non-responsive or a bum or whatever, and it wasn't even like to be clients. Totally, it was like, hey, I've got a great landscaping guy, and then the guy never
Yep.
shows up and never returns the call, and
Yep.
whatever it is. Yeah,
It's
I'm
not
with you on
good.
that one.
It's not good. Now, I want to give one more example for the terrified attorneys listening that say, look, I listened to Happy Happy and I've listened to Quid Pro Quo. And Steve, you can go screw yourself because those are not going to happen. Those are not comfortable for me. I'm
Drop that
not.
in the comments if you're gonna like. Just let us know what you think about Steve if that's what you're feeling right now.
There you go. Hey, jerk, I'm never going to do that. All right. So I work with, I don't know, maybe 30% of my clients are highly introverted, highly uncomfortable attorneys that would never get comfortable with either the quid pro quo or the happy happy. So I have devised another approach, and this is called okay, not okay. And it's so simple. It's not rocket science that we could put that out there. So let's say I'm uncomfortable asking for my client, my GC client, to make an introduction. I'm going to admit it. So the idea behind okay or not okay is that if I'm not okay and I'm demonstrating to my client that I'm not okay, he or she will come around to help me feel okay. It's common humanity, common empathy that they're going to come to your rescue. If I say I'm not feeling well to my wife, hey, can I get you some Tylenol? Do you want some soup? That's what good people do for other good people. So if you have a solid relationship with your client, but you're super uncomfortable, this is how it would sound. Jordan, there's something I've been meaning to ask you. And if I'm being honest, it's super uncomfortable for me, but it's something I'm pushing myself to do because quite frankly, this is the way that things are going these days. I know that you're busy, but I know that you're also well connected. There's a number of people that you've mentioned, other GCs that you're friends with that might do great, that I might be able to help and do great work with. But I just don't want to overstep any boundaries between us. But I would be remiss if I didn't ask to at least have that conversation with you and then zip it. What the hell do you think is going to happen? What is that GC going to say? Sorry, Fretzin, go screw yourself. Too bad. Sucks to be you. It's absolutely not going to happen that way. If you have a good relationship and they care about you and you're a good lawyer, whew, man, watch what happens. I've had people literally say, GC say that to my clients, I can't believe you've waited this long to ask me. They've literally said that in the shoulders drop on the lawyer because they can't believe they haven't either. So it's sometimes just finding an approach that works with your personality, that works with your situation, your level of confidence, and admitting that you're uncomfortable is a great way it's not showing weakness as a lawyer. It's showing weakness as a business developer, which the GC totally gets because guess what? That's why they're a GC. They didn't want to have to go out and build a law practice. So they will understand and be totally empathetic and want to step up and help you. And then again, multiple steps after that have to be hit as well.
I love that. And I mean, and it's funny, you talk about the introvert thing, but I've seen so many introverts that are that much better at building that one-on-one connection because like that's what they're comfortable with, that I could totally see so many people just having that moment and being like, yeah, I'll tell you what, we'll do the 3 of us at lunch instead of the 2 of us at lunch, and we'll see if you guys hit it off. And that way it's not like, oh yeah, come present to 200 people at my company or this trade show. They're looking for a speaker. You're not really throwing them into the deep end. But you've got that way to kind of line up that one extra connection or that one extra one-on-one.
Yeah. And again, there's a lot of opportunity just from asking. Getting in front of people, first of all, will produce. Getting in front of people and being proactive with how you make the ask, super, super high level production. And yeah, there's different coaches that'll say, and I interviewed one recently, it was fantastic. And she was like, she teaches how to do all of what I just said without asking. And again, if you can do that, then great. But most attorneys aren't going to do that and don't do that. So this is another way to leverage the relationship that you've developed and the good work that you've done to ask in a way that's not going to be aggressive or salesy. And that's what lawyers are hiring me for, Jordan. It's the non-salesy approaches to getting this type of stuff done without ever feeling dirty or salesy. And even for the people that heard the first 2, happy and quid pro quo, understand that we can still tweak those to be more comfortable for you based on what introverted level you are, discomfort you have.
Well, and that's the And that's kind of the other part about this that I think gets lost on people. Like when you are just marketing, when you are just running ads, whatever it is, you've got a lot more opportunity for eyeballs in a much colder manner. And so that's where you need some of those, super secret awesome closes. That's where you need a lot of this great follow-up. That's where you need a lot of these things to maximize the value. From that legal business development side, like somebody out there was like, hey, Steve Fretzin is phenomenal. You need to call him right now. And then really like you, from your perspective or from the lawyer perspective, you just need to not screw it up. Like they have come in ready to hire you as long as you are not, completely crazy. And that kind of totally changes the sales of it, or the sales techniques that you need. And I think that puts a lot more attorneys at ease. It's just, you got to put in that effort first to, reap it later.
Well, I don't know if this is going against the grain or not, but I would also say like there are leads that are cold that come in that we've never met, we've never talked. There's leads that come in from people that know me, and there's leads that come in for me that people have been referred by clients that talk me up. I don't really change my sales process too much. When you have a really good sales process, you need to follow it. And so the steps that I work, I don't skip steps because what would I be teaching my lawyers about sales if I'm having, business development, if you will, if I'm skipping steps in the meeting with them. Okay. Number one. Number two is I find that when you skip steps or change things up too much, you don't get the same result. So I want to have a consistent meeting. They're all different meetings, but I want to hit the same steps to understand again, it's not just about who's willing to work with me. I can have people that are willing to work with me, but they're not qualified to work with me. So what do I mean by that? Well, they're not open-minded. They're not coachable. They're not ambitious. They're not hungry. Guess what? Not a fit for me, right? I'm the coach. They're the player. If they don't want to play, they just want magic. Well, then hire marketing people because they can do the magic. Even people that do marketing have to play, right? But you guys are in a much better position to help lawyers get business if they don't want to put the effort in. I can only work with lawyers that want to put significant effort in.
Yeah, and I think that's something that Greg and I hammer all the time in terms of turning people down because of that same reason. Like I go back to, at the end of the day, I think everything that you and I do is how to win friends and influence people, just at scale for the digital age or the modern age, like whatever you want to call it, as that slight difference. And so it's so funny to me to see like all these attorneys that are like, well, either I've done nothing or I've only been networking. Like, great. So when you're on social media, you're talking to the 200 referral sources you've built over the last 20 years. You're not worried about some random person finding you on Facebook. Like, it's a totally different mindset shift for the purpose of a lot of these, ways to stay engaged, ways to stay top of mind, tip of tongue, whatever you want to call it. And it all really goes back to this concept of building that genuine relationship in a mutually beneficial manner. And I don't know why attorneys get so stuck up on it because it's sales.
Well, because it's not what they signed up for. And I get that. Look, if I signed up to go work somewhere and thought it like, here, I'll give you a great example. My wife took on she's a teacher, but she took on a second job at White House Black Market, which is like I don't know if it's upscale, but it's like a mid to upscale clothing place because she loves the clothes and she loved the way they dressed her up and kind of put outfits together. And she liked that. They had her vacuuming and dusting. She's like, I don't vacuum and dust at home. And I'm doing this at this part-time job I don't need. Right. So lawyers are getting into the dusting and the vacuuming that they never signed up for. And I get it. It's not how you wanted to spend your time, but you need to vacuum and dust in order to eventually run the store. I guess you got to kind of pay your dues. But if you're going to pay your dues, you might as well do it with process and do it with integrity and do it in a way that's going to be meaningful to your career. That's a weird example I've never used before.
Right. Very timely.
It seemed to work in the moment. So I went with it.
Yeah. I guess a lot of this, so much of this goes back to law school, right? Like you have some law schools that are a lot more competitive and you're in there for 3 years fighting tooth and nail for the top spot, the whatever it is. And then you get out of law school and for the next 30 years, you're going back to that person. You're like, hey, we have a client in common. Hey, I want referrals for this. Hey, I got to bring you in as an expert on this one case. Like, it's a totally different reality that we are going to school in a complete opposite ecosystem for. And maybe that's a lot of the problem.
Well, let me say this. I'm just going to put this out there. There's a business development avenue and there's a marketing avenue, and you can pick one You can pick none, you can pick one, or you can pick two. If you decide to pick two and you do business development and get really good at doing it, and you get your network, you get your marketing going, your branding going, your social media going, blogging, content, website, all that at the same time or around the same time you're doing business development, there's a peak that they meet. And I'm at that peak right now in my career using you guys. My marketing and my business development are absolutely at the peak of where they've been in my career. And guess what? I'm working less. I'm not working as hard to get business. I'm having people come to me and I'm the expert. I'm the one they were told to come talk to. And I don't have to go out and hustle in attending 100 networking events or attend a ton of conferences or do as much speaking and traveling around the country like I used to. It gets easier over time as long as you put in a smart, consistent effort in those two categories. You'll make your way. If you start at 35, by the time you're 45, you're not going to be working as hard on business development and marketing as you are the first 10 years, 5 years, whatever. That's just a fact. It's just, you're not going to have to play as hard. And that's where most people realize they should have been doing this a long time ago. But that's the beauty of marketing and business development when they work together in tangent.
Well, and lawyer disclaimer slash callback, assuming that you are providing great service, great legal work, that's the table stakes.
Baseline for sure. If you're not doing that, then the whole thing's off the table anyway. You have to be a great lawyer. You have to be responsive. You have to provide great service. If you don't have that figured out, figure that out first. Well, or figure it out while you're doing it. Okay. But you have to have that baseline. Otherwise, your marketing, your branding, all that stuff is going to go to crap because you're going to get destroyed by bad reputations and harmful ratings and reviews and things like that. So no doubt you've got to have that first. You're right on.
And to be clear, the better your business development and the better your marketing goes, the more cases you get. If you don't have that stuff filled out, there's that many more opportunities for you to screw something up on one of the cases. So getting that buttoned up really is important first.
No doubt.
All right. So as we get towards the end of this conversation, obviously you and I could chat all day about this. Anything else, any other big takeaways, things we want to make sure we talk about? Let's make sure we, pitch the book. I know we've got the links here, but
I think a big part of why lawyers aren't successful at business development is because they aren't following there's three different motivations for doing anything: losing weight, learning a skill, playing great guitar, or building your book of business. It's attitude and it's belief in yourself, positive attitude, belief in yourself, and positive behaviors. And there's a cycle that when you get on a positive cycle, you get positive results. And when you get on a negative cycle, you get negative results. And I ask people all the time, which is the one that drives it all? Is it having a positive attitude that drives results? Is it belief in yourself that drives results? Or is it behaviors and doing positive behaviors? The one that's most easily transformed for lawyers that aren't doing business development or marketing or branding, LinkedIn, social media, whatever, it always comes down to behaviors. If you can get your behaviors, get your habit of positive business development behaviors, for example, making 30 minutes of emails out a week, just as a starting point, sending out 3 emails a week as a starting point. Those positive behaviors impact your attitude, having a positive attitude about business development, which then affects your belief in yourself. And you keep that cycle going, you have a positive cycle going. As soon as you break that chain, stop doing business development for a month, your attitude goes down, whether you know it or not, it does. And then your belief in yourself goes down. And then it's hard to get that cycle back up again. So I really do work with attorneys on their behaviors. But even if you never work with me and you're listening, try to do some positive things around business development every day or every week or every month so that you get into a positive cycle, and then you can add to it, you can change it, but you keep that positive going and you'll see the results from it. Even if they're negligible in the short term, you'll see them over time get better and better. And then you just have to improve your skills.
Well, and I mean, look, I'm a big habits over goals guy. For that reason. I mean, if you're sitting here right now, you generated $0. You're sitting here I want $1 million book of business. That is a huge mountain to climb. But if instead it's send those 3 emails, do 1 lunch a month, post on social media 3 times a week, whatever it is, those small habits, you will build and build and build towards eventually, the end result of that being that $1 million book of business or whatever the number is supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, don't feel like you have to have the big dream out there or the big goal or number. Start small, start incremental, and just work your way up. It's 3 emails a week, whatever you decide it is. Okay. And get those emails out, get those meetings set up. And again, keep studying, whether it's my books, videos, podcast, or the thousands of other books and videos and podcasts that are out there. Jordan's is a great one. Neil Tyra's got a great one. Alay Ajanic, Gary Johnson. I mean, the list goes on and on. There's great content everywhere. Steve Seckler. Okay. Study it. Study it the way you studied for the bar. Learn business development. It will help you get ahead at a level that you never realized or really hadn't thought of coming out of law school. But it's become a very necessary part of how you develop your career.
All right. So before we get that final nugget of wisdom, biggest takeaway from Steve, I want to talk about our next episode. Our next episode will air on April 4th. So next week, April 4th, at 1:45 Eastern time, 1:45 Eastern time with Sharon Christie. We're going to talk about the 3 M's of solo and small law firm success: mindset, marketing, and management. So a lot of things that we will cover next week, 1:45 Eastern with Sharon Christie. All right, Steve, we got actionable tips. We've got mindset stuff. We've touched on so many things here. So I want to get one final nugget of wisdom from you. It can be a repeat of something we've already talked about, something totally different. But for our listener watchers here, what would be your biggest piece of advice, the most important thing they should take away from this if they want to be the exhibit A of a successful lawyer?
I think if you consider business development like practicing the law, and that's an easy way to do it, you have to think of it this way. First time you walked into a courtroom and you had to approach a jury or a judge or anything. And then after you did it 20, 30, 40 times, didn't you learn something? Didn't you pick up something in talking to the judge and getting negative feedback or positive feedback and get better and better and better? That's what business development is. You have to start, you have to learn from others, right? Learn from me, learn from Jordan, learn from others, and keep at it and get better and better and better. And that's really what makes people successful at business development, just like what makes a great lawyer a great lawyer. It isn't happening overnight, and it isn't happening without making mistakes and making improvements. That's what life is all about. I do that all the time, whether it's a bad thing, stupid comment I made to my wife and I got in trouble, whether it's the way I approached my angry teenager and got negative feedback. Oh, maybe I shouldn't approach him that way with that kind of sarcasm. We need to learn and improve, and that's life, but that's important for business development, because if you're just doing the same things over and over and expecting different results, we know what that is. That's that Einstein quote, right? So we want to make sure we continue to improve as we go. That's at the heart and soul of business development in the programs I teach.
So hopefully funny story along those lines. So before I was a lawyer, Florida has what's called the Certified Legal Intern Program. So in essence, you could be a law student, you get cleared by the bar, and you could practice as long as there was another lawyer with you in specific instances, had to be a nonprofit, government agency, etc. So I got the opportunity as a 3L to be basically a prosecutor, not officially until after I graduated, but in prosecuting cases. And we were in front of a judge who was at that time, 25-year experience attorney, had run the intake division at the state attorney's office, had done some great stuff as an attorney. Outside of that, then became a judge. And here I am as a third-year law student. So whenever we lost a case, whenever the defendant was found not guilty, we'd be able to have a conversation about the case immediately afterwards. If they were convicted, we had to wait for the appeal process to finish. So there were a couple cases that the jury came back not guilty. And in my head, I was like, well, at least now I get quick feedback. At least now I get that immediate, what did I screw up in this case, instead of having to wait for, 20 or 30 days or whatever the timeline was. But it's so true, because so much of when I became a prosecutor, when I became a defense attorney, when I became a lawyer, so much of it went back to that insight from somebody having seen it, not involved in the case, seeing it from the judge's perspective, seeing it from the jury perspective, seeing it from other things really was helpful. So I love that concept of, getting better with time.
Yeah. It really makes a difference. And I was just talking to a veteran IP attorney who's amazing as an attorney. And he was telling me that he was losing all these deals. And when I asked him about his process, he didn't really have one. He goes, well, it's the wing it process. I go, okay, so that explains a lot. How you're losing deals, why you're losing deals, why people are ghosting you. No, I get it. It's all hope and hoping that things happen and hoping people follow through, and they don't. So we need to think about having a process for how we prosecute or defend in a core room. We need to have a process for how we do business development, marketing, anything. That's what makes things work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Steve.
Thanks, Jordan.
To everybody listening and watching, we've got the links here in the comments on the Facebook page and on LinkedIn. Legal business development isn't rocket science. You can also look for it on Amazon, a multiple international bestseller in a number of different things. Great book, great person. Thanks for joining us, Steve.
Thanks, Jordan. Take care, man.